Masid, the eternal Sudanese Sufi institution. As part of the series of episodes that have been devoted to handle the history and the development of Sudanese Sufism in general and Sufi orders in particular, with the founders and the important significant figures within Tasawwuf, now the time is for the speech on Masid, that Arabic word, mainly in its Sudanese context, referring to the place where the Sheikh with his murids and practice their understanding to the Islamic religion. And at the same time, it is a place where visitors come to satisfy their needs. So it is my pleasure, dear audience, welcoming you into a new episode. And in this new episode, they have started the history, the development, and the function of Masid will be the focus of our meeting today. The Masid, with its various institutions, serve as the foundation from which religious, spiritual, social, and economical activities are practiced. In reaching the people of Sudan with elements that fostered stability, security, and reassurance under the umbrella of the noble Islamic faith. The word Masid is a comprehensive term referring to a place that encompasses the Quranic school, khalwa, student lodgings, taqiyya, that is Arabic word, mainly in Sudanese context, teqiz, guest house, in addition to the space that located for performing the prayer. In simple words, the mosque. So these four elements are integral to the concept of the Masid, which makes it clear that while every Masid includes a mosque, not every mosque qualifies as Masid. Masid is a long-standing and deeply rooted Sudanese institution, as old as the history of Sudan itself. It was established by the Shuyukh of the Sufi orders, who are largely credited with spreading Islam in the country and perceiving its gentle and moderate nature. Throughout history, the Masid has continued to meet the needs of the surrounding population. Typically, the Shuyukh of the Sufi orders would retreat to remote or peripheral areas where the environment offered better opportunities for worship, solitude, and distance from the noise of daily life. Before long, people would begin to gather around them, seeking blessing, religious knowledge, and help in fulfilling their needs, which the Shuyukh strove earnestly to provide. At its inception in Sudan, people's needs from the Masid were modest and straightforward, memorizing the Quran, learning religious sciences, feeding the hungry, spreading peace, and resolving disputes. The Sufis across Sudan succeeded remarkably in meeting these needs, which led Sudanese communities to rally around them and affiliate themselves with these various Sufi orders. Masid shares different names in different Islamic countries. Zawiyas or Khangaka, lodges, depending on the area in which it was located. Each masjid has its own rituals, and its centerpiece, or at the top of its hierarchy, is the sheikh, who is a spiritual guide of the order. Masid in Sudan symbolizes the values and meanings that shape the characteristics of its unique society, with features that overlapped in its fabric and crystallized the bonds of solidarity and compassion that the Sudanese were known for throughout their history, especially in times of crisis and turbulations. In addition to the basic mission carried out by the Masid and the Khalwa in teaching the Quran and the jurisprudence of worship and engagement with people, they constitute, so Masid and Khalwa constitute centers of stability, principle and fusion of various tribal and ethnic affiliations, and the ties between the visitors of these places become stronger and stronger than the bonds of kinship and intermarriage. If you go back to the book of Tabagat of Sheikh Muhammad Nur al-Dayfallah, the first Sudanese authoring book penned by a Sudanese, reflecting or documenting and recording the lives of the Sudanese during fourth sultanate, starting from 1504 up to 1821. So if we have taken this book, we find that Masid precedes the modern state in melting society according to the basis of tolerance, reconciliation, and upholding the principle of accepting the other, so that acceptance on earth is supported by the acceptance of heaven. Starting from the Masid, Sufi orders in many parts of the country penetrated tribal and regional barriers and exceeded the frameworks of fanaticism with their moral behavior, spontaneously seeking to find national integration that includes all groups. So Sufism across country was the only response to the forms of fragmentation, and the Sufis had and still have great effects among people in the society. The arrival of Sufi orders in Sudan was a very significant development in Sudanese social reality, since the Sudanese society knew loyalty only to the tribe. However, after the introduction of Sufism, individuals from different tribes belonged to these orders, thus achieving a high degree of new integration. It was as one of the travelers said that you find at the entrance of the Khalwa or the Masid the different types of shoes that reflect the different parts of the country. Thus, the Masid is an integral part of Sudanese life, and its continuity is not linked to specific political system. Instead, political system finished an end, while the Masid and the carpet is still doing its own function. Generally, Masid is, as we have stated shortly, consists of mosque for prayer and performings of awrat, guest house for welcoming the visitors, in addition to Khalwa, a section inside the Masid in which the Quranic verses or the Holy Quran is used to be taught to the students. And finally, important part inside the Masid is the key. The keys in Sudanese language, takiya or takaya in plural. So just here in this part of our episode, I would like just in this part to introduce some notes about taqis or taqiyya. So Sufi taqi or taqi or taqiyya serve as the channels through which Sufis participated in daily life and are also considered the first building block of the structure of the Sufi order. However, the question here is, what is taqi or taqiyya in the Sudanese language? Taqi comes to the sense of the bond of Sufism. It is a place to shelter the poor and passerby. It is stated that taqis were the channels through which Sufi participated in everyday life. So even this term, by the way, it has its own meaning in some other countries. And it may come to represent the notion of Masid in Sudanese context or in the Sudanese setting. So this is just some points about taqi or taqiyas, and it is so essential. And in most cases in Sudanese society, among the Sudanese, sometimes they referring to the whole institution of the Masid in the word of taqiyya or takaya. So takaya indicate the serving of the visitors with food, shelter, and drinking. And as for the history of the emergence of taqi in Sudan, by the way, it has been also connected with the emergence of Sufism in Sudan and with the emergence of Masid in Sudan. So whenever we come to mention Sufi orders, to mention Tasawwuf or Sufism, in our presence always is the Masid. And inside the Masid we have taqiyas, we have Holy Quran spot or khalwa, and then we have guest houses. So by the way, this is the most important elements that constitute up each or every Masid in Sudan. It is not likely to state of Fon. So Fon Sultanate, during this time, Masid have been established, Quranic school have been also established, and within these two elements, the taqiyya also established and developed, where its inception was associated with the emergence of the Masid and Khalwa, that is Fon Sultanate, which is at its known the first foundation of the Khalwa and the Masid places of worship in the country are Sufism. So to Sufis, the credit of the establishment of taqiyas, in addition to Khalwa, Quranic schools, attributed to Sufis. And what I would like to add here in this particular area is that recently and during this war, I mean here, Sudanese war that is erupted in 15th of April 2023. From that time on, people recall, Sudanese recall once again So during these wars, Sudanese recall the takis, or the takaya as they love to call it in their own language. They recall it, and by the way, it becomes a daily activity that used to be practiced by the youth, scattering in different places, in cities, in villages, providing the service for the needy one. So here we may come to say that the influence, the impact of Tasawwuf to Sudanese is so clear in recalling the term taqiya or takaya. That is, in the past time, the word itself, and since the establishment of Tasawwuf in Sudan, it has been connected directly with Sufis. But because of the influence of Sufism in the Sudanese society, people resorted to pick up from the Sufi dictionary. And since the service and the food and the drink that provided freely in Takis as part of Sufi institution, the same thing come to be applied to the service that used to be provided by the youth who voluntarily come to the service of the populace, shun away with or putting away everything related to the color, related to geographical area, shun away with everything, even the religion. And by the way, this is also indicate how Sufism affected Sudanese society. So my speech on this area will be also in more details in another separate episode. The audience, I would like to remind you that I'm handling the history, the birth, the development, and the function of Sudanese Sufi Masid. And in this part, here I would like sharing you some information that I have collected from some researchers and academics concerning with Tasawwuf and Sufism in the country. So interviews have been conducted following the breakout of the war. And by the way, it has been on December 2023. After 8 months from the breakout of the war. So what also I would like to tell that the interviewees, those researchers and concerned with Sufism and Tasawwuf in Sudan, represented different parts of the country. And despite the bad connection and communication due to the fierce fighting in the country, I managed, by the way, to conduct this interview and having important information that reflect from a side important points, show the significant role that used to be played by Sufi Masid from our side, and at the same time stand as the sample to every Masid that exists in the country. In other words, I would like to say that the samples of the interviewees represented different parts of the country. indication that Sufi Masid also is scattered throughout different parts of the country. So the final conclusion and the findings that I have gathered or I have reached out of the interviews that I conducted with them indicate that the mission, the function of the Masid is so similar, identical, in a way that every Masid will come, the displaced, those affected war citizen, will come them with an open arms, providing them the shelter, providing them the food, drinking, and even medicine. So just here I would like sharing you this part of the interview's responses. So to quote part of those interviews responses, I would like here to share you this important information. So according to one of the interviewees, Sudanese Sufis have found it Masid's barrier to the humanitarian organizations. In his own words, barrier to human rights and humanitarian groups, Sufis in Sudan invented Masid. Masid represented a mini state headed by a poor sheikh who is fakir, sitting on the ground and wearing patchwork. Masid was also a social welfare system, according to him, a melting pot for the fusion of tribe, ethnicity, colors, and races, and an educational, medical, and economical institution. Another response from the interviewees: the Sufi doctrines sanctify the human soul and calls for preserving its dignity, but is keen to liberate it from the clutches of materialism, so that it achieves its freedom and then is qualified to play its role as the caliph in the land in order to build it, reaching to achieve peace among its components. According to another respondent, the Masid has developed into a place where the displaced can find safety and the things that belong to them. These locations or these places referring to the Masids have turned into a heaven for the homeless and those who are stuck in their livelihood, where they receive care from Masid residents who empower them and do not make them feel alienated. So Masid provides shelters to different groups of people, and inside the Masid, people living in peace and harmony, and used to be provided with psychological counseling to address the effects of displacement, free treatment, eating and drinking, as well as lectures on multiple topics, some of which talk about the roots of Sudanese problems and the role of Sufism in spreading the values of love and peace. Another respondent stated, the Masid, as it is throughout its history, was a destination, and wherever it was found, its people receive you with welcoming and smiling face, offer you what they have, and do not follow up their gifts with reminders of their generosity or with injury, but rather they aim seeking Allah's pleasure only in honoring the guest. Hospitality and welcoming at the Masid does not require permission, does not require registration and records, does not require standing in queues, but is a service that is provided willingly. However, what also I would like to tell here is that different Masid represented different locations in the country. For example, I have interviewed some people in Masid of Sheikh Al-Mukhtar, which is part of Shambat. It is in Shambat area. And also I collected some information that have been written by Masid of Sheikh Al-Amin Ahmad Al-Amin in Durman. So two Masids in Khartoum. And furthermore, also I interviewed a member of Kadabas Masid in north of Sudan. Furthermore, I also interviewed 3 or 4 people, one of them from Tabat Sammani Center in Central Sudan, another one from Umaidan Sammani Center, also I interviewed it, while also I have taken some information from a visit that have been done by Sudan TV, where the channel visited Karkoj, Masid of Sharif Muhammad Al-Amin, and interviewed some displaced people. So different places, different Masids, but at the same time, as I have told shortly, they share common function in their own message in addressing the problems of the people whatsoever, their race, their color, their geographical area, or even their own religion. In a long article that have been devoted to handle the effort that used to be led by Sheikh Al-Amin Ahmad Al-Amin in Durman, the journalist Talal Mudassir has written a very long article in the magazine of Al-Atar or Atar weekly issue of November 9, 2023, entitled في درمان هنا ما في تأخير، كل شيء كل الطرق تؤدي لمسيد شيخ الأمين. So just I would like here to quote parts of the article of this article, which reflected the efforts, the contribution of Masid of Sheikh Al-Amin in Durman. So just hear the words of the reporter. Masids open all day, and those in charge of it know the value of the service they perform, and quickly with high vigor to provide what they have and redress the guest mind. Here it is necessary to commend the experience of Masid of Sheikh Al-Amin Omar Al-Amin in Wad Al-Banna in Durman, which was put by events in the heart of the fray. So they develop what suits it, such as the service of delivering food to the elderly in their places, and the operations of medical clinical volunteers or clinical Masid that provide medicines donated by their owners and supervised by a medical staff of volunteers from the Masid. After the 15th of April 2023, and with the outbreak of the war, the image of Sheikh Al-Amin changed completely in the minds of many people in various parts of the country, and they began to look at Sheikh the model with great admiration and appreciations. As the man who is located Masid, a place where his loved ones and followers gather in the heart of the ancient neighborhood, Wad Al-Banna in Durman. refused to leave the neighborhood inflamed by clashes and preferred to stay, with a major change to the role of his Masid from a place of remembrance, chanting and praising, to a full-service shelter providing food, drink and medicine. To quote him, to quote Sheikh Al-Amin, our clinic remains the only place to receive the injured, wounded and sick in all of Omdurman. Patients come to us with prescriptions and from distant areas and give them what is possible. Since our Masid is open to everyone and will remain until the last second of our lives, Muslim, Christian and non-religion followers visit us. We will not prevent anyone because of religious, ethnic or regional affiliation, as long as he came to us obediently and of his own free will. We think daily about the promotion and expansion of our work and thank to the Lord who grant us with some money which we decided to spend it for the good of humanity. Praise be to God. And until the moment, no one has reached us and left with a broken heart. Masid of Shambat of Sheikh Al-Mukhtar. The Masid played a crucial role in providing shelter and paying the persons of housing and living during the war. Many citizens sought refuge there, and when they found their doors open, they were greeted with warmth and generosity and given a respectable livelihood that humanitarian organization could not provide. As a result, Sufis were the best place to seek refuge and assistance in order to satisfy their void with beneficial and useful things. They created intentional scientific programs, spiritual means of food for the mind and soul, and other forms of spiritual amusement after the physical nourishment. Still, we are quoting a respondent from Masid of Sheikh Al-Mukhtar. As for the spiritual aspect, it was through circles of dhikr and listening to the songs and praise in the praise of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all that is because the Sheikh of the past knew that if the soul is neglected and not being occupied with what is beneficial, it would be alienated and be occupied with falsehood. So the Masid of Sheikh Al-Mukhtar in Shambat provided two types of service, that is food, drinking for the bodies, and at the same time zikr, remembrance for the soul. Masid has played an important role in the repair of the social fabric since its emergence in Sudan. Throughout history, the Masid and the Shuyukh of the Sufi orders in charge of it have been the head spear in preserving the heritage of Sudan. Now, in light of the displacement and migration caused by the war in Khartoum, which is scattered recently to different parts of the country, Masids in all safe areas of Sudan have opened its doors to receive guests, accommodate them, and provided them with necessities they need. This role is the eternal historical role of Masids of Sufism. People find comfort and tranquility in all of these ancient institutions. The sanctity of guests is the same as the sanctity of mosque, according to Sufis. So the psycho-spiritual support is what all people, whether forcibly displaced or resident, need in light of these difficult circumstances that the country is going through. So the services used to be provided by Sufis in their own masids to the displaced and to the people that refuse to them. By the way, it comes with silence, complete silence from them, and without any help from the government. So Sufi themselves voluntarily, in a sense of voluntarily works, they always used to be in charge in facing such difficult times that people used to encounter. And the test of the war running now in the country is the best example. So Sufi the Masids have went on to play their social role that in its essence is the religious one. Another respondent from the interviewees came as follows. We find that Masid has a growing role, as many Masids have been and still provide services to the people around them and all those who go to them from visitors. And we find that these services have exceeded feeding and other assistance to services medical and educational, which evolved from the stage of solitude and memorization of the Holy Quran to regular study, where many of them turn into educational institutes that grant various certificates in different educational stages until university. The displaced people of Sudan who are displaced from this absurd war did not find a safe haven in all war areas other than these spots that raise the banners of Sufism. During the war, according to this respondent from one of the interviews, the Masid changed its role in providing meals on a regular basis. It works these days to distribute all kinds of materials throughout the period of this war, where the needy, displaced, and others to secure the need of his relatives of food on a daily basis, where the major providers distribute these materials to those in need without any feeling embarrassed or broken. On the other hand, these Masids work to find housing within the cities and villages that belong to these Masids, as they provided comfortable housing for many families without pay and with no reminders of their generosity or with injury. Another response comes from Kadabas, as is the case with the rest of the Sufi Masid in the country. Masid of Sheikh Jali at Kadabas received large numbers of those affected by the 15th of April war, says Salah al-Bashir, one of the murids of the Tariqa. In his own words, food, drink, and other essentials were given to a large number of families and single people of all ages who had come from various parts of the country. These individuals had nothing to do with Sufism or the Tariqa. This good model is the one experienced by all the Masids of Sudan, and in my opinion represent the real way out for Sudan from this dilemma, where the Masid is the natural place to address all the distortions that occur now. For this we need to give the space for these Masids to work through their well-known mechanisms that find acceptance from people and meet them with complete satisfaction. Another respondent comes from Masid of Sheikh Salman Sheikh al-Bakri at Aidan, north of Dinder. So, according to the respondent, one of those who refuged to the area, mainly to the Masid of the Sheikh, told that the Sheikh had welcomed them warmly, and the people in the Masid also welcome them with open arms, ensure their happiness and comfort by scheduling regular meetings with the Sheikh early in the morning and inquiring about the Sheikh used to inquiring about their circumstances in a humble and dignified manner, sit with the elder, offering them respect, and to their young displaying all kindness and grace. He delights everyone with the goodness of his counsel and his scent. He is regarded as a nice companion by everybody, bringing calmness into their hearts and undoing the effects of terror and fear. Everyone is content with his counsel and has received support as well as psychological and spiritual directions in his Masid. The respondent went further and added, the Masid now plays a more significant religious role in society, and as such, it is expected to work tirelessly and continuously, exerting all of its energies. The Khalwa, the Quranic school, the mosque, the residence of a sheikh, sons and daughters, as well as his relatives and spouses, were graciously tended to be by their hostess. The descendants of charity, who truly extended all the lovely and distinctive qualities, did not spare any effort in containing and atoning for the thoughts and souls of those who suffered much. As the rate of work in the health center in Maidan increased to provide a service that people needed in the autumn time and the difficulty of movement and travel, so that the health center works all day 24-hour service, taking advantage of the medical staff who came to them from Khartoum, where the Sheikh provided them with medical equipment and all the medicines they needed, which made the center a destination for many. The Masid function extended beyond providing shelter and lodging. This is another point added by the same respondent from Aidan Samani Center. So went on to add, it is also a hosted a marriage between one of the guests and those impacted by the war, with Sheikh Saman Sheikh al-Bakri covering all the cost, paying all the cost, and inviting both the people of the village and those in the nearby villages. To observe the situation following the outbreak of war, Sudan TV traveled to the area of Sharif Muhammad Al-Amin at Karkoj. So Sudan TV went there and make the following interview with Sharif Abu Bakr Tijani and some other displaced people. So Sharif started the speech and said, Karkoj has an ancient history. The displaced came to us from Khartoum state and with their various names, tribes, and colors. They came to us as headquarters where they found the Quran, food, and good treatment and kinship. Therefore, the fundamental purpose of our work, the Masid, in the call, preaching, is to feed and to guide this delegation from Khartoum. They are from all over the country, from the west, from the east, from the South Sudan, and from the Nuba Mountains. They were welcome with an open arms. They are among us in the Masid, bound together by a common bond of humanity. So in the same coverage of Sudan TV, inside the Masid of Sharif Muhammad Al-Amin, Karkoj, a displaced woman who was interviewed by the television network stated, in fact, we came to Masid of Sharif Tijani at Karkoj, so we received by Sharif Muhammad, the current Caliph, with the best kindness. They did not fall short with us. They took the sick to the hospital, they provided us with food and drink, and they provided us with rooms and what we need. Another woman from Khartoum expresses her gratitude for the warm welcome and the provision of housing, food, and drink. In her own words, we came from Shambat, Khartoum, and starting on the 5th of Eid al-Fitr. At the start of the war, we came straight to Kirkuk. Thank God, we arrived as if we stayed in our houses. We are not in need of anything. Praise be to God. Such were samples of the respondents from interviewees that they reflected their own views towards the role that played by the Masid and is still running on, or is still the function of Masid is doing its own function and message. So at the end of this episode, I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to all those respondents and interviewees who willingly accept to share their own knowledge about the function and the role that played by Sudanese Sufi Masid during 15th of April War 2023.